Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and a continuing series, Sega Racing Renaissance, where I review every single arcade racing game Sega ever released in 3D in a retrospective fashion. And today we have a combo episode, both WaveRunner and WaveRunner GP, because it felt like I should just put them together and talk about the slight differences. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But both the WaveRunner and WaveRunner GP, the first being on Sega Model 2 and the other one being on the Naomi, are amazing games. But they are gigantic amusement cabinets. If you've never seen one in real life, you could sit on a pretty much full-size jet ski and you would turn left and right with the handlebars, but you could also lean into your turns to give you an assist. Now obviously not having a gigantic jet ski arcade cabinet in my studio, I have to emulate this, and the controls work really well. You just lose that sense of satisfaction of sitting on a giant plastic molded hunk of pretend jet ski. But if you love Wave Race on the Nintendo 64, you're gonna love WaveRunner and WaveRunner GP, because honestly, both of these games are better than Wave Race. And I'm sure I'm gonna hear it about in the comments down below from the Nintendo fans. Don't get me wrong, Wave Race is awesome, but WaveRunner and WaveRunner GP are just more awesomer. That's not a word, but we're running with it. But honestly, Sega loved these big amusement cabinets, and they were so part of the 90s, and even through today they do have giant cabinets like this here and there. But being able to sit on a giant jet ski and pretend you were actually, racing on one was a ton of fun. And the race mechanics here are completely different than any other game you're going to see on this series, because we're not on dirt, we're not on snow, we're not on pavement, we're on water. But moving over to WaveRunner GP on the Naomi, this game definitely looks prettier, but I'm honestly going to say that the original WaveRunner is a little bit more to my liking, and that's just because I love the look of the Model 2. I kind of wish Sega had made a sequel to this game on Model 3 versus Naomi, because I think those boards just have a little bit more iconic 90s look to them versus something like the Naomi or Dreamcast. And don't get me wrong, I love both those pieces of hardware. I just love the Model series a little bit more. But it's just a fun game, and when we're talking about every single racing game Sega ever made in 3D that came out in arcades, you can't not talk about these, even if they're very simple experiences. Both games have 3 courses. You try to get first place in each of them, and if you do, well, congratulations, you won. Go do something else for the rest of your day. These were never long racing games because so much went into the building of the cabinet, and it was so expensive to play because those amusement cabinets always cost like double if triple the amount that a standard cabinet would cost to play. You just played it and then you went on with whatever else you were doing. So Sega never made these games long, but honestly, Daytona USA has 3 courses, WaveRunner GP has 3 courses, so we can't even fault it for that. You'll see there that I did get stuck in an opponent's wake. There is that speed down meter on WaveRunner GP, and if you cross an opponent's wake or get stuck in it, the water gets choppier and you're going to start to lose your speed. My only complaint about this game is that sometimes if you make a mistake, the actual timer can be a little bit cheap. You'll see here I was so close to the finish, but I ran out of time. But popping back over to WaveRunner on the Model 2 for a different course, I just love the color and vibrancy of the Model series of arcade boards. Model 1, 2, and 3 just had these really vivid, vibrant colors that I think actually aged better than the Naomi. I know Naomi technically has more polygons and it's a higher spec piece of hardware, but I do think the original WaveRunner on Model 2 to me just looks better. But I am curious, leave me a comment down below about that. Do you like Model 2s look better, or do you like the Naomi or Dreamcast era? Because I think they're both great. I just have a preference for the Model 2 and Model 3. The game soundtrack is decent. It's got exactly what you expect out of an arcade game, and honestly I feel like the jet ski noises might be slightly louder than they need to be. But go ahead and listen for like 35 seconds and I'll come back and keep touring you through these 2 aquatic racing games. Enjoy! I mean, it's exactly the type of soundtrack you would expect out of Sega. It's not memorable, it's not bad, it's just there, and it really doesn't make much of a difference whether you listen to it or not in-game, because you're going to be way more focused on your racing line. Because like I said, this being the only video in the series that's going to feature water, it just controls completely different, but of course it does. You can't drive on water like you drive on land. A jet ski would be a pretty bad car, and a car would be a really bad jet ski. Moving back over to WaveRunner GP on Naomi, it has a very big feel of Sega Rally to me. All of the different courses, this almost feels like the desert course in Rally, and there's so many weird things in the background, like that gigantic fish is just hanging up. That's like a Godzilla-sized fish. This game actually has a lot of Easter eggs if you look around the course, but honestly that's also a terrible idea to look around the course, because if you're looking at the scenery, you're probably jet skiing right into a wall. And this is not the game that you want to make mistakes on, because when you lose time, you lose a lot of time, because it's not a car that you just bump and keep going. If you spin your jet ski out, it takes like 5 to 10 seconds for it to get back up to speed, just based upon the physics of trying to go through water with the drag versus having much less drag on something like pavement or even dirt. You'll see here that I'm doing relatively well, but if I get stuck in that chop, you just lose speed. And I have ridden jet skis in my real life. I used to have one in high school. Me and my friend went halvesies on one and brought it to the lake. It was a weird thing, but we were pretty cool to have done it. And I will say that getting them up to speed takes a lot longer than if you just push the gas on your vehicle on an open road or a straightaway. And honestly, you definitely can't do this on a jet ski. If anyone ever does it, or if there's a clip on YouTube, please send it to me, I'd be curious. But it's an arcade racing game, so you can totally backflip your jet ski and drop what looks to be about 150 feet and just keep racing. I'm pretty sure in real life if you did that, then your spine would be through the top of your skull and you would be having a very bad day. Going through these tunnels here, going back and forth, you'll see I start to make mistakes, and that's all it's going to take to scrub all that speed off the jet ski, and for me not to be able to get to the next checkpoint, or maybe I make the next one and fail. You just have to be near to perfect playing this game. Although I am playing it on normal difficulty, you can set the timer to be less stringent on easy. But honestly, you get better at it the more you play, and that's always good for any sort of arcade racing game. And the nice thing is the physics across both games are pretty consistent, but you will see that at the bottom left hand corner there isn't that speed down meter, because riding over your opponent's wake does not slow you down the same way it does on WaveRunner GP. But you still get amazing jumps where you can go over an island and just miss that tree right there. You wouldn't do it in real life, but you can do it in an arcade game. And speaking of Easter eggs, that's Sam up there, and he is looking for his Fruit Loops. He's honestly not, I just felt like throwing that in there because it seemed fun. Now, if you're not going to play any game from this retrospective series on arcade racing games from Sega, you can make it these two. I'm not saying they're not good, they're just so much different than all the car-based racing games that I've shown you so far. It almost feels like a different genre, and honestly I almost didn't include it in this list, and I don't know how I drifted over that island, but it seemed amazing. But it qualified for the retrospective because it has all the rules. 1, it had an arcade release, 2, it's in 3D, and 3, you're racing against other people. I never set a rule that couldn't be water-based, maybe I should have, but honestly this is just the odd man out in this video series. But it is not the odd man out in being fun or not, because this game is as fun as any other Sega arcade racing game you can find. It just happened to be on water. But if you ever do see a cabinet for this in the wild, I highly recommend you throw some quarters into it and check it out, because these cabinets broke regularly. People are not nice to arcade cabinets, they beat them up. And then they beat them up extra hard when they're sitting on them and thinking that the harder they throw their weight, the easier it will be to turn. These cabinets get broken all the time, and if they're not making enough money for arcade operators, when they break that last time, they just recycle them because they find it might not be worth keeping it running on the arcade floor. So like I said, if you see either of these in the wild, or you see something like the Sega skiing games or any big amusement cabinet that has these sort of sit down or stand on and lean mechanics, definitely play it, because the odds of it being there next time you go are probably like a 50-50 coin flip. And you'll see here that I am crashing that jet ski. The later levels just get hard. This game is easier on an arcade cabinet because you do actually have the controls set up the way that you would actually lean into them. Emulating these is a little more difficult, but you can still get first place if you practice. But Sega just wasn't making arcade racing games that required cars, pavement, dirt, or snow in the case of Sega Rally. They were also making water-based racing games, and like I said, This checks every box as far as the rules of this series are concerned, so we gotta have it here. But leave me a comment down below. Have you ever played these games on the original arcade cabinets? Have you ever emulated them? Or is this one of the first times you're seeing them actually running in action? Both are easy to emulate, so if you want to play them, I highly recommend it. Short of that, I'll be back next Wednesday with our episode in the Sega Racing series, and I'll have videos throughout the week as well. But yeah, you can do worse than WaveRunner and WaveRunner GP. Bye-bye.